Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news tonight on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Let's begin with the headlines. Prime Minister Modi kicks off BJP's election campaign in UP from Meerut, targets SP-BSP alliance, says there will be no development in Uttar Pradesh if people of the state vote for the alliance. Addressing a public rally in Rudrapur, Uttarakhand, Prime Minister questions the Congress on delay in concluding Rafale deal. Parties step up campaigning. BJP Chief Amit Shah addresses political rallies in Assam, says party detect and deport every illegal immigrant out of the state. Rahul Gandhi says Congress scheme Nyay fiscally doable. CPM releases party's manifesto for Lok Sabha elections. Notification issued for the third phase of elections, polling to take place for 115 seats in 14 states and union territories on April 23rd. Prominent candidates including Amit Shah, Mulayam Singh Yadav, Jayaprada and Abhijit Mukherjee in the fray in this phase. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley accuses Jawaharlal Nehru of surreptitiously inserting Article 35A in the Constitution, says it is time that the rule of law applies equally to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And China tells the US to act cautiously after the latter moves a resolution at the UN Security Council to list Masood Azhar as a global terrorist. American resolution drafted with British and French support. Well, let's begin the newscast with election-related news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched BJP's election campaign from Uttar Pradesh's Meerut. Addressing an election rally, Prime Minister Modi said that his government has taken decisive actions and has not indulged in sloganeering. He said that there is no such person in the society and no such corner of the country which has been left out of development during his government. Calling the BSP-SP alliance in the state as political opportunism, Prime Minister Modi said that there will be no development of the state if people vote for them. Targeting the Congress, the Prime Minister said that the party is making false promises to the people.
जो लोग अरे गरीबों का बैंक का खाता 70 साल तक नहीं खुलवा पाए, वो अब कहते हैं तुम्हारे खाते में पैसे डालेंगे। कोई भरोसा करेगा क्या? अरे जो खाता नहीं खुलवा सकता है वो खाते में डाल सकता है क्या? अभी पिछले चुनाव में 2 लड़कों का खेल देखा। ये 2 लड़कों से बुआ बबुआ तक पहुंचने में जो तेजी दिखाई गई है, बड़ी गजब है जी। भाइयों और बहनों, इन लोगों के लिए सत्ता से बढ़कर कुछ भी नहीं है।
Addressing another rally at Rudrapur in Uttarakhand, Prime Minister Modi blamed the previous Congress-led government for the delays in acquiring military equipment. He said that the party was more focused on commissions from defense deals. He said the Congress sat on the deal for the Rafale fighter jet as it was focusing on the kickbacks and not on national security.
अटल जी की सरकार ने राफेल जहाज खरीदने की शुरुआत की थी, लेकिन कांग्रेस 10 वर्षों तक उस सौदे पर बैठी रही। क्यों? क्योंकि मलाई नहीं मिल रही थी। वायुसेना की जरूरत को देखते हुए इस काम को आगे बढ़ाया। और अगले कुछ महीने में ही राफेल हमारी सैन्य ताकत को मजबूत करेंगे.
Meanwhile, BJP chief Amit Shah accused the previous Congress government in Assam of settling illegal immigrants in the state. Addressing two election rallies in Assam's Kaliabor and Jorhat, the BJP president asserted that no one will be allowed to enter Assam illegally if the BJP secures a second term at the centre. He said only Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the BJP can ensure security of the country and not the Congress. Amit Shah slammed the Congress party for demanding proof of the damage caused by the Indian Air Force's Balakot airstrike inside Pakistan.
सबसे बड़ा काम भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार ने किया है तो घुसपैठियों को रोकने का काम भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार ने किया है. और मैं आपको आश्वस्त कराने आया हूं, मोदी जी को फिर एक बार प्रधानमंत्री बना दीजिए. आसाम में से एक घुसपैठियों को चुन कर हम आसाम के बाहर भेजने का काम ये भारतीय जनता पार्टी की नरेंद्र मोदी.
Well, CPM released its manifesto for the Lok Sabha polls on Thursday. The manifesto promises to provide unemployment allowance and enforce farmers' rights to sell their produce at a minimum support price, which is at least 50% higher than the total cost of production. The party manifesto promised a statutory minimum wage of not less than 18,000 rupees per month. The manifesto also promises universal public distribution system with 35 kgs of food grains per family.
The strength of the CPIM and the left must be increased in the 17th Lok Sabha. Thirdly, to ensure an alternative secular government to be formed at the centre after the election. And this secular government not only to defend our constitutional republic, which is under severe attack.
Meanwhile, Congress President Rahul Gandhi on Thursday said if voted to power, his party will cut red tape for businesses. Ahead of the first phase of the Lok Sabha polls, Gandhi unveiled his economic agenda, said his government's focus will be on job creation. Entrepreneurs will get fiscal and tax incentives based on their ability to create jobs. New enterprises will be exempted from seeking any permission in the first 3 years, making it easier to get loans. These will form part of Congress Party's election manifesto that will be released next month. Well, the stage is set for simultaneous elections in Arunachal Pradesh in the first phase on April 11th. The present term saw a lot of turncoat politics, with 43 Congress lawmakers pulling down Nabam Tuki's government. Our correspondent Vishal Dahiya spoke with former Chief Minister Nabam Tuki, who is contesting both in the Assembly as well as the Lok Sabha seats.
What is your party's strategy? What is it that you're going to the voters with in terms of promises and what you want to do?
Misgovernance of the BJP-led government at the centre has been angered the people, entire northeastern region. Therefore, we are going to get benefit out of that, because people have full faith on Congress in the region.
The general voter out here is more concerned about infrastructure and corruption being, one of the major issues out here. So, how is your party planning to go ahead and, address these issues? Because you've been in power for quite long.
During my time, we made the amendment of Lok Ayukta Act in the state, and it was passed in the state assembly. And till today, it is not implemented by the government, BJP government. By now, it should have been implemented. This was to prevent and to check corruptions. This is only law to check corruptions, which we have made it, honestly.
There are a lot of, allegations and counter-allegations happening between both BJP and Congress. But now that the elections are near, what is your party's stand on the issue of PRC?
The issue was laying pending for quite a long time. And so many joint high power committee was constituted earlier also. It was examining because laws are not applicable to do that. Because the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act 1872 is clear that no outsider other than ST, scheduled tribe, can reside, take residence certificate in Arunachal Pradesh.
Okay. So your party will not support the PRC, and that's what your stand is as well.
We never support before also,
Okay.
and will not support in the future until and unless it is amended in the Act of Parliament. So it cannot be happen now.
Well, in other election news now, nomination process for the first two phases of the Lok Sabha elections concluded on Thursday. A total of 1,216 candidates have filed their nominations for the two phases. According to the Election Commission, 616 valid nominations for the first phase and 600 valid nominations for the second phase have been received. In the last 5 weeks, close to 1 crore names have been added in the voter list. The first and second phase of elections are slated for April 11th and April 18th.
Out of the valid nominations, 493 are the male candidates and female candidates are 45. So in total, we have about 616 valid nominations which have been filed so far. This phase 2, the status is like this. Total nominations filed are 635 for 97 parliamentary constituencies, for which there are 95 for the recognized national parties. For the state parties, there's 16. For other registered parties, the 214. For independent, is 253. The male candidates are 538 and the female candidates are 41, totaling 600.
Well, with the issue of notification, filing of nominations for the third phase of Lok Sabha elections began on Thursday. 115 constituencies spread over 14 states and union territories will go to polls in this phase on April 23rd. The last date of filing of nominations for this phase is April 4th. The scrutiny will take place on April 5th, while April 8th is the last date for withdrawal of candidature. Elections will be held in all 26 seats of Gujarat, all 20 in Kerala, 14 seats each in Karnataka and Maharashtra, 10 in Uttar Pradesh, 7 in Chhattisgarh, 6 in Odisha, 5 each in Bihar and West Bengal, 4 in Assam, 2 in Goa and 1 each in Jammu and Kashmir, Daman and Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli. Meanwhile, political leaders like BJP President Amit Shah, Sambit Patra, Varun Gandhi, Jaya Prada, Samajwadi Party founder Mulayam Singh Yadav and Congress leader Abhijit Mukherjee are among the candidates for this phase. The Lok Sabha elections will start on April 11th and continue till May 19th in 7 phases. The counting will be held on May 23rd. Meanwhile, in Odisha too, third phase nominations will begin for 42 assembly segments. Well, moving on from election news to other big news of the day. Now, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has said that Article 35A is constitutionally vulnerable and is hampering development in Jammu and Kashmir. In a blog, Jaitley said that the Article 35A that restricts non-permanent residents to buy property in Jammu and Kashmir is impacting economic development of the state. Finance Minister said that the 7-decade history of the state of Jammu and Kashmir confronts changing India with several questions. He said most Indians today believe that the Nehruvian course was a historical blunder.
7 दशकों के बाद ये प्रश्न हमारे सामने आता है कि क्या नेहरू जी का जो दृष्टिकोण था जम्मू कश्मीर पे वो सही था। उसका असर ये हुआ कि अलग अस्तित्व से यात्रा अलगाववाद की तरफ चली गई। स्वाभाविक है कि आज वक्त आ गया है कि कानून का राज जम्मू कश्मीर में भी हो, और इसलिए पिछले कुछ महीनों में जम्मू कश्मीर में कानून के राज की एक व्यवस्था बनी है। अलगाववाद कि जड़ जहाँ से पैदा होती थी ऐसी संस्थाएं, जमायत इस्लामी, JKLF पे प्रतिबंध लगा दिया गया है। उनके सैकड़ों कार्यकर्ता जेल में हैं, उनके दफ्तर बंद कर दिए गए हैं। NIA और इनकम टैक्स बहुत बड़े पैमाने पर वहाँ जो टेररिज्म के लिए पैसा आता था उसको उन्होंने उसके ऊपर रोक लगाने का प्रयास किया है। जो लोग इस देश से अलग होने की वकालत करते थे उनकी सुरक्षा वापस ले ली गई है और जनता के लिए एक शांति का माहौल एक बार फिर जम्मू कश्मीर में बनाने का प्रयास किया जा रहा है।
Well, Arun Jaitley said that Article 35A was surreptitiously included by a presidential notification in the Constitution in 1954. Jaitley further said that the article discriminates between permanent residents of the state and all other Indian citizens living elsewhere.
आर्टिकल 35A जिसकी बहुत चर्चा होती है, किसी संविधान संशोधन के माध्यम से नहीं लाया गया था। वो अनुमति देता है कि भेदभाव कर सकते हैं दो नागरिकों के बीच में। एक नागरिक ऐसे जो वहाँ संपत्ति नहीं खरीद सकते, जिनके बच्चों को कॉलेजों में दाखिला नहीं मिल सकता, जिनको सरकारी नौकरियाँ नहीं मिल सकती और जो वहाँ पर असेंबली के, म्यूनसिपैलिटी के, पंचायत के चुनाव में वोट भी नहीं डाल सकते। इसका असर ये हुआ कि जबकि राज्य के अंदर आर्थिक साधन बहुत कम हैं, बाहर से कोई आर्थिक साधन लगाने वाला नहीं था। कोई नए कॉलेज नहीं बने, प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटीज़ नहीं बनी, कोई उद्योग नहीं लगे, कोई इतने बड़े पर्यटन के केंद्र में कोई होटल चेन्स इस प्रकार की नहीं आई और इसकी वजह से अर्थव्यवस्था भी सुकड़ी रही और इसकी वजह से जो नई नौकरियां, जॉब क्रिएशन होना था, राज्य के अंदर नहीं हुआ। इसका सबसे अधिक नुकसान जो हुआ जम्मू कश्मीर की जनता को हुआ।
And joining me for a chat now to talk about this is Supreme Court Advocate Aishwarya Bhati. Aishwarya Bhati, thank you for joining me on the program. So what are the constitutional vulnerabilities really if you look at Article 35A?
Thank you. Well, Frank, if you speak to any student of law objectively who's not representing either of the sides in the case before the court, anybody will tell you that Part 3 of the Constitution has fundamental rights and that part of the Constitution which has also been adopted by the Jammu and Kashmir Constitution with a few additions, so all of fundamental rights is there. If any amendment has to be made in Part 3, then it has to be by under Article 368 of the Constitution by 2/3 of the majority in both the houses of the Parliament, and that is the only way that amendment can be done. Now, Article 35A is something that did not follow that procedure. It has actually come in through a backdoor entry, that's what we call it, because it is by a presidential proclamation and it actually does not exist in the Constitution books at the end of Part 3 where it is supposed to be. It is added as an appendix to the Constitution with the rest of the presidential orders. Now, rest of the Part 3, which is fundamental rights, gives rights to citizens against the state. Article 35A does what the rest of the articles, takes away that protection. It allows discrimination to be perpetrated by the state between two sets of citizens. One, the citizens of the country and residents of J&K, and also residents of J&K inter se. So it is perpetrating discrimination on two counts between these citizens on 4 issues. So if you see the wording of Article 35A, the state can discriminate by making laws when it concerns employment in the state, with regard to acquiring property in the state, with regard to settling in the state, and very importantly with regard to sanctions, grants, educational loans, aids, any kind of state subsidy. On that also discrimination can be done. So it's a very, very serious provision, and the challenges before the court of law. And as any student of law, I also have the same belief that the Honorable Finance Minister has.
Okay, and so it is this very discrimination that that does not allow development to take place in the state. Is that how you look at it?
Let me give you some examples. I have told you in theory what Article 35A does. Now let me give you some examples. it is completely contrary to the concept of gender balance and gender justice, because if the woman of JNK marries of a person or a partner of her choice outside of the state of JNK, then her prodigy, her children, her family loses all rights.
Right, we seem to have lost the line there with Aishwarya Bhati. We'll try and reconnect with her. If we can't, we'll move on there.
Then the children have this.
Oh, go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead, Aishwarya.
Yeah, so I was giving you examples. Now, there was one example that the finance minister has also given, that some, people who can vote, people who are living in JNK for last 70 years, they can vote in the Lok Sabha elections, but they're not allowed to vote for the Legislative Assembly, for the Panchayat elections. So they don't have any role in they are disenfranchised completely. They don't have any role or any say in the local development, and therefore you have these settlements which are on the borders along the line of control. These people have been there for 70 years. They are huge settlements, but there are no roads, there are no electricity, because they're just not they're not vote banks. So they are not voters. So the local governance just doesn't care for them.
Right.
Then there is another example of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. You'll be, we all know, Frank, that our constitution prescribes affirmative action when it comes to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe people, for people who have been, backward for centuries. Now, this Article 35A allows the state of JNK to tell these SC/ST people who are settled in Jammu that your children will not be eligible for any government employment, and you will have to continue to do scavenging. So
right.
Rather than having an affirmative action like the rest of the constitution, they are actually perpetrating discrimination and harassment for these. So some of these examples are really stark, and I think Article 35A has just been made a boogie. It is absolutely, I am of the firm belief that Article 35A has to go for the state of JNK to actually progress and prosper.
All right. It's time for Article 35A to go, is what our expert is saying on the program today. Aishwarya Bhati, thank you so much for joining us on the program and sharing your views on this. Moving on now, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu stressed on the fact that climate change is the most common challenge faced by the world today. Delivering a keynote address at Connect Karo, event organized by the WRI India, the Vice President said that the best way to face climate change is to be friendly with nature and live in harmony with it. The Vice President also emphasized that there is need to systematically identify the source of the problem and deal with it, or else it will adversely impact the health and well-being of city residents, especially our children.
We are all together fighting the common challenge of climate change that threatens our planet. And as we brace ourselves to cope up with this challenge, we will have to marshal all our intelligence, knowledge, science, and understanding of nature to do that. Climate change is upon us. The best way to face the climate change is to be friendly with the nature, love and live with the nature.
Meanwhile, the Rajya Sabha Secretariat organized a workshop today for the standing committees of Parliament. Inaugurating the workshop, the Secretary General of the Rajya Sabha, Deshdeepak Verma, said that workshops like these inspire everyone to do better work. The Secretary General of the Rajya Sabha stressed on the importance of role of the officials in the lawmaking process. Apart from the Joint Secretary level officials of the Rajya Sabha, other officials associated with the committee participated in the two-day workshop. The purpose of organizing this kind of a workshop is to strengthen the parliamentary system and law and order processes.
The committee systems are very important. People who are working in the committee systems are very important, because you are the one who provide the basic information, basic knowledge to the committee system, and as I will come later, that you can be very instrumental in making these committees efficient, useful and functional.
Well, moving on to some international news now, where stepping up the international pressure to designate Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar as a global terrorist, the United States, supported by France and the UK, has directly moved a draft resolution in the UN Security Council to blacklist the Pakistan-based terror group's chief. The United States circulated the resolution drafted with British and French support to the 15-member council that would designate JEM leader Masood Azhar, subjecting him to an arms embargo, travel ban and asset freeze. This is the first time the US, the UK and France have moved a draft resolution directly in the Security Council to designate Azhar. The move comes 2 weeks after China put a hold on a proposal to list Azhar as a global terrorist at the UNSC. Reacting to the development, China said that the US has complicated the issue of listing Masood Azhar by bypassing the anti-terror committee in the UN itself. The Ministry of External Affairs, meanwhile, has refused to comment on the development, calling the process entirely within the parameters of informal discussion of the Council and its members. In some more international news now, there was no sign of a breakthrough in the Brexit deadlock. UK lawmakers failed to agree on an alternative to Theresa May's Brexit plan. None of the MP's 8 proposed Brexit options have secured clear backing in a series of votes in the Commons. The options, which include a customs union with the EU and a referendum on any deal, were supposed to help find a consensus over how to leave the EU. However, British lawmakers failed to find a majority on a way forward to break the impasse over Britain's departure from the European Union. However, British lawmakers voted to delay Britain's departure from the European Union until April 12th. After the results, Brexit Secretary Stephen Barclay said that it strengthened ministers' view their deal was the best option. Meanwhile, May has promised to stand down as Prime Minister if her deal was passed.
Today considered a wide variety of options as a way forward, and it demonstrates that there are no easy options here. There is no simple way forward. The deal the government has negotiated is a compromise, both with the EU and with members across this House. That is the nature of complex negotiations. The results of the process this House has gone through today strengthens our view that the deal the government has negotiated is the best option.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this newscast. Good night.